Hello, everybody. So this is the first lecture video on the chapter of preschool and early childhood, which is the range from 3 to 6. And there's a lot going on here for those of you who might be in the early childhood class. Like this is sort of your focus. Okay, so what's going on for children ages 3 to 6? When we talk about body development, this is a really rapid period of physical change. You know, your average 3-year-old is weighing 35 pounds. Your 6-year-old is 50 pounds. It's a lot of weight gain over 3 years. It's about 3 to 5 pounds a year. The head is still relatively small, and this is a period where the cartilage is more quickly turning to cartilage is more quickly turning to bone, right? So this was a period of time where we have a lot of a phenomenon called night terrors and other sleep disturbances, and I put them kind of in quotation marks because when we talk about night terrors, I often say that they're more terrifying for the parent, but what they are is they're a rapid, where a child wakes quite suddenly from deep sleep. Your textbook suggests that it's more common during this period, but other textbooks I use acknowledge or recognize that it's a period of any sort of stage in physiological development where it happens quickly, and it comes out of the if you're in the psychology class, we have a whole chapter on the way that sleep works, but it's a period where you're going from deep wave sleep into short wave sleep, and the body becomes alert when it's not supposed to. So we call them terrors because I would argue they're frightening for the parent more than they are the child. So a kid wakes up really fast, they scream, and then they go right back to sleep. Also common during this developmental stage, because there's so much developing, or sleepwalking and sleep talking. And both of those, we call those parasomnias because they're stages of arousal when your body is supposed to be, when you're supposed to be asleep. And the kids are sleeping a lot during this time period. They're sleeping like maybe up to 11 hours. There's another thing that's happening that's more common, and you also see this reappear from time to time during periods of rapid development, and that's I should have Googled this word before I said it, but the term given for when we wet in our sleep. I can't say it, friends, this one right here, but it's bedwetting. And your textbook gives a lot of attention to sort of cultural variations about how we sleep. It talks about that in some cultures where co-sleeping is more common, other cultures where we put children away. We live, and we'll see this theme throughout. We've probably seen this theme throughout, but in an individualistic culture, we're more likely to separate the children from the adult. This is a time, what your textbook calls, of rapid and profound brain development. Density, and this is an important concept here, or important idea, is that the density of synaptic connections, so that means the possibility of all of these brain cells connecting with each other, peaks at about 4 years. So one of my previous textbooks, there was an interesting, maybe it was in the previous chapter slide, but there's an interesting image, and what it's intended to illustrate is how we have all these neurological neurons that are connecting with each other, and around 4 years of age, we have more possible neurons connecting with each other, and then over time, it's called synaptic pruning. But the point is that this is a stage of childhood development where the possibility of neurological development is its greatest. Like, this is the most you're ever going to have, or the most not true. Not the most you're ever going to have, but the most spread out. And then as you have experiences, they become specialized or lateralized. That's another word right here. And lateralization is the fancy term for when neurons fire together, they create memories, and what we call memory traces. So the structures of your brain are forming. This is why this is such an important part of a child's life, because the patterns, the parts of their brain that are going to respond to environmental stimulus, that are going to act or be triggered, if you will, and that's a popular term, those are being laid down right now. So attachments should have happened before this, but all of these things are building the architecture of the way the brain is going to work. It's a really, really important time. Something I learned from this textbook that I'd not read before is that by 6, a brain has reached 90% of its total volume. So it's still going to grow a little bit more, and that's why we say it's relatively small, but it's almost as big as it's going to get. And 6-year-olds are pretty small. Lateralization, I've already talked about that. And another important idea right here is the myelinization of the corpus callosum. Honestly, I don't remember if we've covered some of these structures in previous chapters, but what this means, myelinization is fat. Myelinization is the covering of the brain cell of the neuron that allows it to transfer information quickly. You have to have fat. I always use the metaphor of fat is greasy and makes things go or makes things slide. And the corpus callosum is the structure that connects the right hemisphere from the left hemisphere. So as the brain structures that connect this side of the brain, right, which is like your language and logic and your creativity, as this brain structures become more interconnected, you have a more integrated neural network, and both sides of your brain work together. That's really the significance of this very phrase right here. The myelinization means the connections are becoming more efficient between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, your corpus callosum. So my point being is this is a really significant time for brain development. Some of the things that are happening with children's physical development is this is when children's gross meaning big, motor skills, and some of the things from our textbook, your textbook does a lot of listing of the things that happen during these stages, but a couple of them that are significant is 3-year-olds should be walking right around now. They're able to jump. They've developed the ability to control both their bladder and their bowel, which you think about. These require some muscular control. By 4 years old, you've got 20% of them can throw a ball, 30% of them can catch. They're able to hop. Now, this textbook that this lecture is drawn from distinguishes between hopping and jumping, hopping being 1 foot, jumping being 2. I think that's right. It's not a quiz question. There's also a discussion about skipping. And then you get to 5, and you got some kids that can do downhill skiing. But here's something I hadn't considered, is that it's actually a child will learn how to go up the stairs with 2 feet before they'll learn how to go down the stairs with 2 feet. So by 5 years old, a kid should be able to walk down the stairs 1 foot at a time without assistance. We start to see in this period some fine motor skill development. So the signs of which your kid is going to be right-handed or left-handed should become increasingly clear. Certainly by the time you get to 3, 90% of kids are going to be right-handed, 10% are going to be left. More boys are going to be left-handed than girls. One of the previous textbooks I used had an illustration of how a child's artistic abilities become more fine-tuned. So earlier on, they're making just these scribbles, right, and they're calling that a person. And then as a child's artistic, because you got to develop these fine motor skills, right, the ability to hold, so that's going to require some musculature and the ability to control. This book does not talk about potty training. Previous textbook did, and it suggested or observed that that children today are becoming potty trained later and later. Some explanations for that would be parental convenience and the availability of things like diapers and such, which makes it less critical for a parent or a child to learn how to do these, right? It's just easier to wait until they're ready. There is some evidence, though, that says that we should be responding to a child's interest. At least this is the current thinking. When a child is interested, what is it? Let me see if I can remember. When a child shows some interest, when they are uncomfortable in their diapers, when they're wet, and I think when they're physically able to pull up and down their pants, those are the times that make it, that are convenient, if you will, for potty training. Okay, the next slide, I'm almost coming up on my 10 minutes, so I'm probably going to stop here in a second, but this next slide where I'll pick up is about some of the health and safety issues that are relevant to this stage in development. But I will stop for now.